sun rises with hope, and love blooms in the quiet moments.
This is love I treasure, and I will fight for it.
A love so pure made the world around us disappear.
What I want, I take. Even love bent for power.
But not all battles are fought with weapons. Love caught between the chains of power and the fight for freedom. A woman willing to risk it all. But power never gives up easily, and some battles never truly end. From the ashes of betrayal, love will rise, but some wounds will never heal. This is not just a story of love. It is a story of survival, sacrifice, and the strength to endure. Can this love stand? Would anyone survive this fight? It is do or die. It is a battle of love.
Once upon a time, in a small, beautiful village nestled in the heart of Africa, there lived a beautiful woman named Amara. Her beauty was renowned throughout Zuri village, and many spoke of her grace as if she were a goddess walking among mortals. Amara had a heart that radiated kindness, and she embodied the spirit of her people, proud, resilient, and deeply rooted in African culture. Zuri village itself was a place where tradition and beauty intertwined, surrounded by lush green hills, rolling plains, and the vibrant energy of nature. Amara lived with her parents, farmers who worked tirelessly to make ends meet. Though they had little, they were rich in love, and their values were centered on respect, kindness, and the strength of family. Amara had caught the eye of many suitors, but none more determined than Obinna, a humble young man from the village. Obinna had grown up in poverty, but was known for his hard-working nature and deep affection for Amara. Every morning he would bring her fresh flowers, often picked from the fields where he worked. However, things were about to change. One day, a military convoy passed through the village, led by General Kofi, a powerful and wealthy man known for his ruthlessness on the battlefield. Kofi was a man of immense influence, with soldiers at his command and a reputation that stretched across cities. The moment he laid eyes on Amara, he was smitten. He decided, there and then, that Amara would be his wife. Amara's life changed when General Kofi approached her family, bearing gifts and promises of wealth. He declared his intention to marry her, much to the delight of her parents, who saw the general as a ticket out of poverty. But Amara's heart did not stir for the general. Instead, it had long been secretly captivated by Obinna, the man who, despite his modest means, made her feel cherished with his simple acts of love. The conflict between these two men quickly became the talk of the village. While General Kofi used his influence and power to intimidate others, Obinna sought to win Amara's heart through sincerity and the purity of his love. The contrast between them was stark. One represented power and wealth, while the other symbolized true love and humility. Kofi's soldiers began to patrol the village, instilling fear in anyone who dared to oppose the general's desire to marry Amara. Yet Obinna refused to back down. He began crafting a plan to win Amara's heart, even as the shadow of the military loomed large over the village. His love for her was unwavering, and he believed that in the end, love would triumph over power. Determined to prove himself worthy of Amara, Obinna left the village in search of better opportunities. He ventured to the nearby city, where life was fast-paced and opportunities abounded, yet the struggles were immense. The contrast between the serene beauty of the village and the bustling, chaotic energy of the city was striking. Obinna worked tirelessly, taking on any job he could find. laboring in factories, running errands, and selling goods in the market. His only motivation was to return to Zuri village with the means to ask for Amara's hand in marriage. Meanwhile, General Kofi continued to press Amara and her family. The general's wealth was immense, and he began making preparations for the wedding, assuming that Amara would eventually yield. But Amara, though gentle in nature, had a fiery spirit. She refused to be bought, and in moments of solitude, she prayed for Obinna's return. In the city, Obinna encountered a series of hardships, yet with each struggle his determination grew stronger. He met new people who helped him understand the complexities of life beyond the village. But nothing could shake his love for Amara. Through perseverance, he started a small business, selling handmade goods inspired by the beauty of African culture. Slowly, he began to build a modest income, always with the thought of Amara in his heart. Upon his return to Zuri village, Obinna found that General Kofi had made significant progress in securing Amara's hand in marriage. A date for the wedding had been set, and the entire village seemed to be preparing for the grand event. Obinna, though heartbroken, decided that this would be his final stand. He confronted General Kofi, requesting a chance to prove his love for Amara. The general, confident in his superiority, agreed but on one condition: a public contest between the two men. It would be a display of strength, intelligence, and character, and the winner would marry Amara. The entire village gathered to watch, and what followed was a series of trials that tested both men in various ways: intellect, physical endurance, and even matters of the heart. In the midst of the contest, Amara herself faced an internal struggle. While Kofi represented wealth and security, her heart longed for Obinna, the man who had never wavered in his love for her. The tension reached its peak during the final trial, a test of bravery, where both men had to face dangerous animals from the wild. Obinna, though lacking Kofi's military training, used his deep connection with nature to emerge victorious. Though Obinna won the contest, the battle was far from over. General Kofi, humiliated by his defeat, sought to use his military influence to force Amara into submission. However, the people of Zuri village, inspired by Obinna's courage and Amara's unwavering resolve, stood together against the general's tyranny. The villagers, bound by their shared love of culture, beauty, and the power of unity, confronted General Kofi's soldiers, forcing them to retreat. Kofi, realizing that his power could not buy Amara's love, reluctantly accepted his defeat. Amara and Obinna were finally united, not by wealth or influence, but by the deep and sincere love they shared. Their wedding was a beautiful celebration of African culture, set against the backdrop of the village's natural beauty. As the couple exchanged vows under the African sun, surrounded by the vibrant colors of the land and the warmth of their community, it became clear that love, true selfless love, was the greatest power of all. As the village celebrated the love between Obinna and Amara, a sense of peace and joy settled over Zuri. The couple stood together, hand in hand, under the African sunset, basking in their victory. However, General Kofi, humiliated by his defeat, was not ready to surrender so easily. Despite appearing to accept the outcome, deep within him brewed a storm of anger and bitterness. He retreated to his military base in the city, vowing that if he could not win Amara's heart through power or competition, he would use his influence to break Obinna for good. Days after the wedding, soldiers from Kofi's unit stormed Zuri village in the dead of night. Obinna was taken from his home, arrested on fabricated charges of conspiracy against the government. The village elders and even Amara's parents pleaded with the soldiers, but their pleas fell on deaf ears. The soldiers dragged Obinna away in shackles, leaving behind a devastated Amara. General Kofi had arranged for Obinna to be transported to a maximum security prison in the city, far away from Zuri village. There, Kofi believed he could keep Obinna locked away, out of Amara's reach, forever. The general's pride was hurt, and his plan was simple. If he could not win Amara's love, he would at least ensure Obinna could never have her. Amara was devastated by Obinna's sudden arrest, but she was not one to back down. The same fiery spirit that had refused Kofi's advances now fueled her determination to save Obinna. She knew she had to act quickly before Kofi could permanently sever them. As her world seemed to crumble, Amara devised a daring plan to rescue the love of her life. Amara's plan began with a dangerous journey to the city, where she sought help from people who had once supported Obinna in his business endeavors. Though the city was vast and intimidating, she had grown in her own strength and understanding. Armed with only her courage, she managed to contact a group of underground activists, individuals who had long been at odds with the government and military rule. These were people who had seen injustice and knew how to fight back without raising suspicion. Among the activists was a former soldier named Kwame, a man who had served under General Kofi but left the military due to the general's corrupt ways. Kwame knew the layout of the military bases and prisons, and he shared information with Amara on how to infiltrate the prison where Obinna was being held. Together they developed a bold plan that would require not only stealth, but also an incredible amount of bravery. Amara disguised herself as a local trader, taking on the role of someone selling goods to prison guards. Her heart raced as she approached the fortified prison walls, knowing that one mistake could lead to her own capture, or worse. However, her love for Obinna gave her strength, and she kept reminding herself that no obstacle was too great to overcome for the man she loved. Amara learned about Kofi's plan through Kwame, and the news sent a wave of panic through her. She realized that she had less time than she thought to rescue Obinna. Now it was not just a matter of sneaking him out of prison. It was a race against time. If Kofi succeeded, Obinna would be transferred, and Amara might never find him again. That night, as the full moon illuminated the African sky, Amara, Kwame, and a small group of the activists gathered outside the prison walls. They had one shot at this, and failure was not an option. The plan was simple, but incredibly dangerous. While Kwame distracted the guards at the front gate by setting off a series of explosions meant to sound like a nearby accident, Amara would sneak into the prison's holding area and free Obinna from his cell. As the explosions rocked the area, panic spread among the guards, and many rushed toward the source of the commotion. With the path clear, Amara slipped into the prison, her heart pounding in her chest. She navigated through the corridors, guided by Kwame's directions, until she reached Obinna's cell. Seeing him there, beaten but alive, filled her with both relief and sorrow. "Amara?" Obinna's voice was hoarse, filled with disbelief as she unlocked the cell door. "Is it really you?" "Yes, my love," Amara whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. "I promised I would come for you." But just as they were about to escape, the door to the prison wing swung open. General Kofi stood there, his face contorted in anger. He had anticipated that Amara might try something bold, and now he stood before them, flanked by armed soldiers. Kofi raised his gun, ready to end Obinna's life. But Amara, driven by her love and the power of her spirit, stepped in front of Obinna, shielding him with her own body. "You will have to go through me," she said, her voice steady. General Kofi hesitated. Defeated, he lowered his weapon. "Go," Kofi finally said, stepping aside. As they fled the prison, Amara and Obinna knew that their fight was far from finished. Kofi's power still loomed over them, and the path ahead would not be easy. But for now, they had each other, and that was enough to keep them moving forward. As Amara and Obinna hid in the bustling city of Umoba, their hearts were burdened with the knowledge that General Kofi's wrath had not been fully extinguished. Despite their temporary freedom, they knew that the general's power stretched far beyond the walls of Zuri village. The city offered them some anonymity, but it could not protect them forever. While they lay low, Obinna began to plan for their future, one free from the clutches of Kofi's relentless pursuit. But miles away, in the quiet of Zuri village, General Kofi's soldiers, under his direct orders, surrounded the home of Amara's parents. His failure to win Amara's love had become an obsession, and if he couldn't reach her, he would strike at those she loved. In the dead of night, they captured her parents, dragging them away without warning. The villagers, fearful of Kofi's military might, dared not intervene. The news of her parents' capture reached Amara by a trusted villager who risked his life to bring the message. Devastated, Amara knew that the stakes had been raised. No longer was it just about her and Obinna. Now, her family was in peril. The general had escalated the battle to a new and dangerous level, and Amara could not stand by helplessly. But this was not a battle of physical might or covert operations anymore. It was a battle that would be fought in the courts. A legal path was the only option. Amara and Obinna, both now fugitives in the eyes of the law, needed legal representation. The general had built a case against Obinna, accusing him of sedition and conspiracy, painting him as a traitor to the government. If Obinna were convicted, he would face a lifetime behind bars, or worse. But Kofi's corruption ran deep, and as whispers of his abuse of power spread, it became clear that the general had enemies of his own. Corruption charges began to surface against him, and the case against Obinna quickly grew into a major legal battle. Amara sought out the best lawyer in Umoba, a sharp and relentless attorney named Adaora. Known for her fearless pursuit of justice, Adaora had taken on powerful figures before, and she was unafraid of taking on Kofi. The stakes were high. Not only would she defend Obinna, but she would also build a case that exposed the general's corrupt practices. Meanwhile, Kofi assembled his own legal team, a formidable group of lawyers whose sole mission was to crush Obinna and silence any accusations against the general. The courtroom became a battlefield, with each side preparing for a case that would capture the attention of the entire country. For the first time, Kofi's military strength and influence were not enough. The tension in the courtroom grew heavier with each passing day. General Kofi's imposing presence was palpable, a man still shrouded in power and fear, even as his corruption began to unravel. Yet despite Adaora's brilliant defense, the court proceedings took an unexpected turn when a surprise witness for the prosecution stepped forward. He was a man with ties to a rebel group, and his testimony painted Obinna in a dark light. The witness, claiming to have fought alongside Obinna during a supposed insurgency against the government, portrayed Obinna as a dangerous revolutionary. He testified that Obinna's time in the city was not spent merely running a business, but organizing uprisings against the military. His words sent a ripple of shock through the courtroom. Even Adaora was momentarily taken aback, though she quickly composed herself, knowing that General Kofi had likely paid or threatened this man into lying. As the accusations mounted, the judge, pressured by the weight of the testimony, declared that Obinna would remain in prison as the case continued. His eyes filled with despair as the courtroom murmured in confusion. Amara, sitting in the front row, could barely contain her grief. Tears streamed down her face, her hands trembling as she realized that the battle was far from over, and her love was slipping deeper into danger. Amara's parents were still missing, and the weight of their disappearance pressed heavily on her. General Kofi had cleverly hidden them in an undisclosed location, ensuring that no one, not even his own soldiers, knew where they were. Amara's heart ached for them, but she could do nothing as the courtroom proceedings took their devastating course. Adaora, shaken but undeterred, requested a recess. She needed time to regroup, to build a new strategy. The legal battle was no longer just about love. It had become a fight for justice in a system rigged against them. The defense team gathered in their chambers after court, their faces etched with concern. They began reviewing the case from every angle, knowing they had to find something to discredit the witness or expose the general's deeper corruption. As they pored over the evidence and statements, Adaora decided that more than just a legal approach was needed. Amara's emotional breakdown in the courtroom had not gone unnoticed. Her love for Obinna was now more than just a personal matter. It was a symbol of resistance against General Kofi's tyranny. The lawyers' team knew they had to go beyond the courtroom walls to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, General Kofi's confidence grew. He believed that the trial was leaning in his favor, and his satisfaction was evident. But there was something more sinister in the works. Kofi was preparing to eliminate anyone who could potentially damage his standing in court. As the trial resumed, Adaora called a new witness to the stand. This witness was a former military officer who had worked under General Kofi, and he possessed key knowledge about the general's illegal activities. The courtroom was filled with anticipation as the man took the stand, ready to expose Kofi's crimes. Under cross-examination, the witness revealed that he had seen documents and plans implicating Kofi in arms smuggling, unlawful detainment, and even political assassinations. It was a significant moment in the case, one that could have tipped the scales in Obinna's favor. The court, however, was not swayed easily, and the judge called for the witness to return another day for further questioning. That night, as the witness left the courthouse, General Kofi made his move. Knowing that the witness was his greatest threat, he set a trap. The man was ambushed by Kofi's men in the dark alleyways of the city, silenced before he could reveal any more damning information. His body disappeared, and the next day, when court resumed, the witness failed to appear. At the same time, the court reaffirmed the charges against Obinna. With the witness gone and no substantial evidence to counter the rebel accusations, Obinna remained in prison. His fate now seemed all but sealed, and Amara's despair deepened. She watched as the court prepared to set a date for Obinna's sentencing, knowing that he could be condemned to death. But Amara was not willing to give up. Desperate and running out of time, she decided to take matters into her own hands. With the help of Adaora and Kwame, she assembled a team of hackers and underground activists determined to expose the truth about General Kofi's crimes. They knew that the key to bringing him down lay in the video evidence stored within the country's security systems. Amara's team planned a daring operation to break into the country's security unit and retrieve the damning footage. This evidence, if made public, would expose Kofi's involvement in orchestrating Obinna's imprisonment and reveal other dark secrets the general had hidden. Amara's resolve grew stronger, and she knew that this was their last chance to save Obinna and free her parents. The plan was to obtain video evidence showing Kofi's involvement in various atrocities, including footage of him using government resources to frame Obinna, and even an incident where Kofi had shot a civilian who had accidentally collided with his car. Amara entrusted the videos to a close friend, instructing them to send the files to all the major TV stations. She knew the court might try to cover up the truth, and the only way to expose Kofi was through the media. As the day of Obinna's sentencing approached, tension hung thick in the air. The courtroom was packed, with journalists from all over the country ready to report on the outcome. But Amara was missing. On her way to court, she had been abducted by unknown assailants, preventing her from delivering the evidence. With Amara gone, the court proceeded with the sentencing. Obinna was sentenced to death by hanging. As he was being taken away to face his execution, the video evidence began to air across all major TV stations. The world saw General Kofi's crimes in real time, but it was too late. The court had already made its decision, and Obinna was led to the gallows where he was hung. The news reached Amara, and the whole family were thrown into mourning. Just as the news broke, the governor of the state, outraged by the revelations, ordered General Kofi's immediate arrest. But by then it seemed that the damage was already done. Obinna's execution was carried out before the order to stop it could be enforced. In the chaos that followed, Amara was found and rescued, but she was faced with the terrible realization that Obinna might be gone forever. However, not everything is as it seems. While in prison, Obinna met a man named Baba Sani, an old prisoner who had been incarcerated for many years. Baba Sani was once a respected community leader, and though life had dealt him a harsh hand, he maintained influence even within the prison walls. Years earlier, Obinna had crossed paths with Baba Sani, helping him during a difficult time when others had abandoned him. Now, as fate would have it, Baba Sani recognized Obinna when he arrived in the prison, beaten and broken, awaiting execution. One day, during their secret conversations in the prison yard, Baba Sani took Obinna aside and said, "You will not die here. I've seen good men fall to this system, but you are different. I owe you my life, and I won't let the likes of General Kofi take yours." Obinna, though filled with despair, listened intently as Baba Sani outlined a daring plan. Baba Sani had befriended some of the wardens over the years, and with his influence, he was able to make certain arrangements that no one else could. He explained that he had reached out to one particular warden, a man with loyalty to Baba Sani, who had access to the prison mortuary. There they found a body of a man similar in size and build to Obinna, recently deceased. The plan was to swap the bodies when the time for Obinna's execution came. The warden would smuggle Obinna out of the prison disguised as a corpse, while the dead body would be used for the hanging. The switch would happen seamlessly, under the guise of routine prison protocols, and no one would question the ambulance arriving to collect the body after the execution. It was a long shot, but it was the only chance Obinna had to survive. The day of Obinna's scheduled execution arrived, and the prison was buzzing with tension. News of his hanging had spread, and reporters were stationed outside the prison, awaiting the final verdict. Inside, Baba Sani's plan was set in motion. Obinna was escorted to the execution chamber, but behind the scenes, the body swap was already in progress. Just before Obinna was brought to the gallows, the warden led him to a side room where the body of the deceased man had been prepared. They quickly switched clothes, and the warden wrapped Obinna in a sheet, disguising him as a dead prisoner. Meanwhile, the executioners, unaware of the ruse, hanged the body that everyone believed to be Obinna. As the clock ticked down, an ambulance arrived at the prison gates, its staff prepared to transport the corpse to the mortuary. In reality, Obinna lay in the back of the ambulance, alive but hidden under the sheet. As they drove away from the prison, Obinna's heart pounded in his chest, but he knew that for the first time in months, he had a chance at freedom. General Kofi, by this time, had been arrested and was awaiting his own trial, facing the prospect of life in prison or even the death penalty. He had no idea that the man he had condemned to die had escaped his grasp. The world believed Obinna to be dead, and that was exactly how it had to remain. Disguised as a scavenger, Obinna carefully made his way to Amara's house in the city. His hair was matted, his face obscured by dirt and grime, but his eyes still shone with the same love and determination. Amara, heartbroken and thinking that Obinna had been executed, sat in her home, crying alone. Her parents had finally been freed, but the loss of Obinna weighed heavily on her soul. Obinna entered the house silently, his eyes scanning the room until he saw her. His heart ached seeing her in such pain. Slowly, he approached her. "Amara," he whispered, his voice hoarse from months of struggle. Amara, lost in her sorrow, didn't recognize him at first. She looked up, startled, seeing a man who appeared to be a vagrant standing before her. But there was something about his voice, something familiar. Her heart skipped a beat. Who are you?" she asked. her voice trembling. "It's me, Amara," Obinna said, stepping closer, his disguise beginning to fall away. "I'm alive." Amara's eyes widened in shock as she realized who he was. Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were tears of joy. She threw herself into his arms, unable to believe that the man she thought she had lost forever was standing right in front of her. How are you alive?" she gasped between sobs. Obinna explained everything. Babasani's plan, the body swap, the escape. It all sounded like something out of a wild dream, but Amara knew that this was their reality. They had been given a second chance, and now they had to make the most of it. With the news of Obinna's death still fresh in everyone's minds, Amara and Obinna knew they had to leave the country. General Kofi's power might have been weakened, but his allies were still dangerous. They couldn't afford to stay in Africa, where their enemies could still find them. Instead, they made plans for a final escape, to a place where they could start over, far from the corruption and violence that had haunted them for so long. Using fake identities, Obinna and Amara became Ben and Bella, slipping away from Africa and making their way to Brazil. In the vibrant, colorful streets of their new home, they built a quiet, peaceful life together. The past was behind them, and in their new world, they could finally be free. Years passed, and Amara and Obinna, now Ben and Bella, raised 3 beautiful children. Their life in Brazil was filled with happiness, the love they had fought so hard to protect, blossoming in ways they had never imagined. Though their journey had been long and painful, they had found a place where they could truly live in peace, far from the shadows of their past. The memory of what they had endured would always be with them, but now, as they walked along the sun-soaked beaches of their new home, hand in hand, they knew that they had won their ultimate battle. Together they had created a new life, one filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a brighter future. This story taught us that obsession with power and control can lead to self-destruction, while love, resilience, and integrity will always triumph in the face of adversity. General Kofi's relentless pursuit of control over Amara led to his downfall, showing that manipulation and greed will ultimately destroy the one who wields them. On the other hand, Obinna and Amara's enduring love, their perseverance through hardship, and their unwavering bond reveal that true happiness and peace come not from power or wealth, but from the strength of human connections and the courage to stand against oppression. In the end, the story teaches that love is not about possession, but about trust, freedom, and mutual respect, and that those who seek to control others will never find the peace they desire. True strength lies in letting go of control and embracing the vulnerability that comes with real love. Having said that, this is not the end of this story, as sometimes things are not as they seem.